There's a specific kind of adulthood that begins with exhaustion instead of confidence. It often belongs to people who learned very early that no one was coming to protect them, not in obvious ways, not always through neglect or danger, but through absence, through moments where fear went unnoticed, where emotional overwhelm had no witness, where safety was never clearly established. And most of these children don't realize anything was missing. They grow up assuming this is what childhood feels like. They believe the tension was normal, that staying alert was responsibility, that growing up fast was strength, that learning to be quiet, adaptable, and self-sufficient was maturity. But what they were actually learning was survival. When protection is absent in childhood, it doesn't announce itself as trauma. It blends into personality. It disguises itself as independence, as emotional intelligence, as being easy. And because of that, it often goes unexamined for years. Because when you are never protected, you don't necessarily feel unsafe all the time. You feel like safety is something you have to earn, something that depends on how well you behave, how little trouble you cause, how much you manage on your own. This is the psychology of the child who is never protected. Protection, when it exists, is invisible. A child isn't meant to notice it. It operates quietly in the background. Someone paying attention. Someone stepping in before things escalate. Someone holding emotional weight. So the child doesn't have to. But when that layer is missing, the child becomes aware of everything. They track shifts in tone. They sense moods before words are spoken. They feel tension long before conflict surfaces. Their nervous system learns early that no external buffer exists. And so it adapts. That child becomes observant, hyper-aware, emotionally attuned beyond their years. Adults often praise this. They say things like, "You're so mature. You don't need much help. You're strong." But what they're really noticing is a child who learned to stay regulated because no one else was doing it for them. The child internalizes a belief that shapes their entire life. If something goes wrong, I'm on my own. Children who are protected learn that mistakes are survivable. That fear doesn't always lead to consequences. That someone bigger will intervene if things fall apart. But for the unprotected child, consequences feel immediate and personal. If something breaks, they pay for it emotionally. So they learn to prevent problems before they happen. This is why many of these children grow into adults who are hyper-responsible. They anticipate. They plan. They carry weight before it's assigned. Not because they crave control, but because unpredictability once felt dangerous. Psychologically, this is the nervous system attempting to create safety through vigilance. Over time, vigilance becomes identity. They become the reliable one, the calm one, the one who never panics. But beneath that composure, the body never fully rests. Because safety was never experienced. It was only managed. Another common imprint is emotional self-containment. These children don't easily ask for help. They don't express need freely. They don't assume someone will respond. Early expressions of fear or confusion may have been ignored, minimized, or made things worse. So emotions were handled internally, quietly, alone. This is an emotional coldness. It's emotional efficiency. The mind learns that feeling doesn't change outcomes, but managing does. As adults, this often looks like independence. But internally, it feels like isolation, even in close relationships, because relying on someone still feels risky. Love, too, is interpreted differently. For protected children, love feels consistent, predictable, reassuring. For unprotected children, love often feels conditional, something earned through usefulness, compliance, or being easy to be around. They learn that being low maintenance keeps peace, so they become adaptable versions of themselves. Different emotional volume in different rooms, not because they're inauthentic, but because authenticity once came with consequences. This is why many adults who were never protected struggle to know who they really are. Identity forms through being seen and reflected. When protection is absent, reflection is inconsistent, and the child grows up quietly asking, "Am I allowed to take up space?" Even when no one is asking them to shrink. Their relationship with authority often reflects this too. They may distrust it deeply or comply excessively. Either way, safety is self-generated, not expected. This often evolves into a quiet form of perfectionism, not flashy, internal, a belief that mistakes are costly, that preparation is necessary, that relaxing invites chaos. Perfectionism becomes protection. Burnout becomes the price. There's also a deep loneliness that persists even when surrounded by people, because protection isn't just presence. It's emotional containment, knowing someone is holding part of the weight. When that was missing, closeness later can feel unfamiliar, desired but unsettling. Many of these adults give easily, support naturally, but receiving care tightens something inside, because surrender once felt unsafe. Neurologically, this makes sense. A child's nervous system calibrates to its environment. When safety is inconsistent, it stays on alert. Even years later, the body remembers. This is why rest can feel uncomfortable, why stillness can bring anxiety instead of peace. The system learned that danger comes when attention drops. But there's something important here. The child who was never protected didn't just lose something. They developed something. Awareness, sensitivity, emotional depth. They understand pain intuitively. They recognize unspoken struggle. But empathy without boundaries becomes exhaustion. Strength without softness becomes isolation. Healing doesn't mean erasing these traits. It means teaching the nervous system something it never learned. That safety can exist without effort. That support can be consistent. That rest doesn't equal vulnerability. And this learning is slow, because the mind understands safety faster than the body does. One of the most important steps is learning to recognize needs without judgment, not minimizing them, not comparing them. Another is learning to receive without performing, to accept care without earning it, to rest without justification. The old belief whispers, if I don't hold everything together, it will collapse. But that belief belonged to a child. The psychology of the child who was never protected is not a story of damage. It's a story of adaptation, of responsibility arriving too early, of strength built out of necessity, and of an adult who is now learning something new. That safety doesn't always have to be constructed. Sometimes it can be allowed. And when that realization finally settles in, something profound happens. The nervous system learns that it is finally safe to exhale,